Chapter 76. The Law of Kindness. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verses 24 and 25. When thou comest into thy neighbour's vineyard, then thou mayest eat grapes thy fill at thine own pleasure, but thou shalt not put any in thy vessel. When thou comest into the standing corn of thy neighbour, then thou mayest pluck the ears with thine hand, but thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbour's standing corn. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verses 24 and 25. There are many who would maintain that this is an obsolete law. It is reference to a time in history when the distances between towns or cities was considerable, and there were no way stations or places in between where a man could eat. A traveller, going some distance, might be hungry well before reaching his destination. This law gave him, legally, the freedom to pluck some grapes, fruit, or grain from a nearby field, and thereby lessen his hunger. The law did not allow him to carry away anything from the field. We have a reference to this text in Matthew chapter 12, verse 1, compare Mark chapter 2, verse 23, and Luke chapter 6, verse 1. The Pharisees did not object to the disciples eating from a field as they passed, but only to their doing so on the Sabbath. They deliberately misinterpreted what the disciples did by calling it reaping instead of plucking, because they wanted to criticize the disciples and their Lord. The use of this kind of law prevailed in Palestine and Syria, at least into this century, and elsewhere as well. The occasion for such use of another man's food had to be genuine hunger. We have had now a series of laws calling for a love of one's neighbour. In Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 1 to 4, the law concerns lost properties. In chapter 23, verses 19 and 20, interest-free loans to covenant brothers in need are required. In chapter 22, verse 8, the law requires a protective railing around the flat rooftops where people gathered and ate, even slept, in hot weather. Refugee slaves, according to chapter 23, verses 15 and 16, were to be given sanctuary, and so on and on. In Deuteronomy chapter 24, we shall see more such laws. This law gives no man a right to take from his neighbour's field. Only hungry travellers passing through could use a limited amount of a man's produce. Nothing could be carried away. The owner of the fields could not be robbed. I recall also, as a child in horse and buggy days, that the memory of this law and its use still lingered. A passer-by who took fruit violated the privilege if he pulled down and broke a peach tree in the process of getting a peach. Peach tree boughs break readily. Respect for the farmer's trees and vines was mandatory. There had to be a concern for the neighbour's property. To eat something was legitimate. To carry anything away was stealing. To eat from another man's field was a privilege. It could not be treated as a right. In Armenia, whenever possible, permission was asked lest it be assumed that a thieving hand was in the orchard. The harvest was a gift from God, and it was therefore to be used according to his law word. This and other laws of Exodus through Deuteronomy have been called laws of kindness, and rightfully so. Those who insist on seeing God's law as harsh and unbending are simply ignorant of it. From start to finish, the law of God includes many commandments requiring that various persons, covenant members and foreigners, be treated with grace and helpfulness. It is simply false and ignorant to see God's law as harsh and brutal. Such views tell us more about the viewer than they do about God's law. This law makes it clear that God's bounty must be shared. At the same time, there is no penalty by man for the violation of this law. God gives no man the right to enforce many of the biblical laws. That prerogative he reserves unto himself. One of the serious evils in both church and state over the centuries has been the attempt to carry law beyond its God-ordained limits. To do so, for however an ostensibly noble cause, is to play God. And this is the ultimate sin. Genesis chapter 3, verse 5. A rabbinic targum to Deuteronomy translates in verses 24 and 25, "When thou comest," as, "if you become a hired labourer," thereby limiting the permission to use the field's produce only to those who are hired workmen under the landowner's authority. There is no biblical warrant for this limitation. J. H. Hertz noted, "The rabbis limit this privilege to the labourer who is engaged in gathering in the grapes." The Geneva Bible marginal note retained this rabbinical view, which not all rabbis held. This law makes it clear that we have no unlimited right to our possessions, or, we must add, to our lives. We are the Lord's property, and what he gives us must be used according to his law word. This is the meaning of the law here given. We are stewards of all that we have under God. No man has a right to our property, but neither do we. We have received of the Lord that which we have. It is to be used, first, to prosper our covenant family in Christ. Second, it must be used to further his kingdom. Third, we must help in Christ's name those who are in need. This text has been used to promote a rather monastic view of property. Nothing could be more alien to the text. No other culture has done more to tie property to the family than biblical faith. The monastic perspective views property lightly because it sees the eternal order as more important. Without implying that monasticism was not often a great power for good, we still must insist that the biblical faith gives priority to the family in a very firm and material manner. Because property is so important, we must use it to help those in need. Many ways have been sought towards this goal: gleaning, as with Goodwill Industries; emergency aid, as with the Salvation Army; rescue missions and the like, and many other means of helping the immediate needs of people have been developed. The material side of life is regarded as God's blessing upon us in many texts. In Proverbs chapter 10, verse 22, we are told, "The blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow with it." The word rich translates a Hebrew word meaning material accumulation, so it cannot be spiritualized away. Precisely because material wealth is a blessing from God, where it is godly gain and prosperity, its use is important. Charity is expected of us. It reveals a love of God and of our neighbour. Material things are a part of the good life, and we therefore are summoned by God to bless those who are in need with our gifts. With respect to this law, it means simply that a simple need is met. By being a part of a system of covenantal help one to another, whatever it may be, we manifest our love of God and our love of our neighbour. We are told in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 and 5, a command repeated often in the Bible: "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might." God does not give his law as something alien to his love, but as a part of it. By obeying God's law, we abide in a covenant of grace, law, and love with Him, and with one another in Him. It is anti-God and anti-Christian to pit law, love, and grace one against another. Instead of rightfully dividing the word of truth, 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 15, it is wrongfully dividing it. It is an attempt to put one aspect of God's revelation against another. God's law is this law of kindness to us. A final note. Otto Scott has pointed out that statism destroys both charity and property. Taxation works to replace charity with welfarism and to undermine the ownership of property,